We've got a lot to get through today, so apologies if we go fast, but I really want to try and get lots of great ideas and content for you to think about. So whilst you're sitting there, perhaps having your lunch, and I'd love to encourage us all to think about what questions we might have, and what our key takeaways are. Often we sit and watch and make that time and investment in time to listen to what I'm going to talk to you about today around our careers, but think about what your key takeaways are so that you can really get quite a nice succinct note to yourself about what you're going to do differently. So let's be honest that we want a return on our investment, and your investment today is time. So think about how you can really maximize your return on investment at the end. So let's jump in and go through the presentation. So today's all about careers, and I'm talking about 13 fundamentals of managing your career. And a lot of the challenges that we have when we think about our careers, that we actually step in our own way. We don't realize how powerful we are without actually having a plan and getting into really tapping into that resource that we totally, all of us, have within ourselves. So this is a beautiful quote, that you are very powerful, providing you know how powerful you are. So I'm going to give you permission today. I'm going to give us permission today to be powerful. So the ladder, the career ladder, when I was coming out into my first finance roles, when I was the young tender age of 21, we definitely had a career ladder ahead of us. But I think in today's world, it's more of a lattice than a ladder. But think about your career with as much strategy as you possibly can. For those working in a business, you wouldn't work in a business that didn't have a strategy, or you'd find it really confusing to work for some company that didn't have a strategy. So why would you do it to yourself? So think about that for you. And my overarching message, in everything that I do, is that you are the CEO of you. So think about you as a business, put yourself in the middle of your world and work out how you're going to plan your career around what it is that you want to achieve. So think about the career ladders, and sometimes people say to me, it's better to be halfway up the right ladder than at the top of the wrong ladder, which I think is quite a nice vision of thinking about those ladders. Make sure that you're on the right ladder, and if you're not, then the earliest that you can get off that ladder and get onto the right one, the better it is for each of us. So this is a collaboration. This is a journey that shouldn't be a solo journey. You can go far, you can go fast on your own, but you definitely go further together. So think about how and who you need to collaborate with on your career journey. So I've talked about strategy. We've all got a strategy, right? Well, if we haven't got a strategy, then now's a good time at the end of the decade and the announcing of a new decade to have a strategy. So gone are the days where we may have achieved a level of a success just by being at the right place at the right time. And I certainly had this in the early stages of my career. And what I'm encouraging us to think about now is actually having a strategy and being very intentional and not drifting. So I've had an awesome 25-year career and really reached the heights of CFO, but I fell into the early stages of that pathway because I had a boss who was actually a decent boss who was there to see me grow. And so that's awesome. But I'm saying that that's actually being in the right place at the right time. I didn't find that person, and I think they're potentially fewer and further between them now. So making sure that you've got a strategy for your own career and don't outsource your career to somebody else, I think is really important. Something that I'm really passionate about in business and in my personal individual life as well, it's really about this thing as personal brand. And people in business get this because that's how they do business, and people in careers don't often think themselves as a personal brand. So if you're not thinking of yourself like this, then I would really encourage you to start thinking about how you're showing up. How does the outside world see you? And now in today's world, I mean, when I started out in my finance career at the young age of 21, we didn't have internet, we didn't have computers. What was written down on a piece of paper, or if someone phoned for looking for a reference, that was the only way that you were going to get cut through. but now we know that you're standing out online. And even if you don't have a personal brand or you're not managing a personal brand, trust me, we've all got one. So have a think about how you're showing up online, because this is how people check you out, whether it's recruiters, whether it's current roles, whether it's future roles, whether it's trying to collaborate or find accelerators that are going to help close a gap for you. They're all looking at you online. So what is your message and how do you stand out from others? And what do you care about and why should your audience care? And this is really brought to life by using social media. So it's not just about a Facebook profile or Instagram profile, but probably in our world, it's really about the LinkedIn world. But you can show up online in a number of different ways. So, it's not just about liking or sharing articles, but it's actually having comments on articles and actually being able to really leverage and show other people who may be watching you what's important to you. And to give you an example, bring this to life a little bit, in 2013, I won the CFO of the Year award, and that's when I realized that people, or two things I realized. I wanted to know what was next. So I couldn't believe that I'd reached the echelons of CFO and an award-winning CFO, and it then sort of made me think about what's next, and that's when I was thinking about becoming the CEO. But bringing that to life in a way on social media so that people knew that without me actually specifically saying this is what I want to be. And the way I did that was I wrote a white paper on the future of work and I put it out on my LinkedIn profile. So what that did, I think, started showing the world that I wanted to be known for more than just the CFO, for more than just the finance, for more than just the numbers. So you can do things quite subtly. You can start writing a blog, you can start writing on LinkedIn and having a view on something that might not necessarily be in your industry, or if it is, then maybe do both. But I would definitely encourage you to do something. So by just liking or having a place card holder is not going to be good enough, unfortunately. So it's not an overnight success, and it's something that you have to work on. So I would really encourage you to make a start on that. So what does being agile mean? We know what it means potentially from a project management perspective, but what does it mean for you and your brand? Okay, what does it mean for the business of you? And this is really around being clear about who you are and what is your purpose and what is your mission? What are you trying to achieve? If you don't have clarity on that, then no one's going to be able to understand who you are. So it's not an easy and it's not overnight, but you need to get really clear about how you explain yourself to others. Once you've got clarity, you can talk with confidence on who you are and what you do. And time is precious, right? We know that. And so really trying to get good at explaining who you are about your sales pitch is really important. This aspect of visibility is really important. If you're not visible, that means you're invisible, and nobody wants to be invisible, because that means potentially if you're looking to improve or move careers, you have to be visible. If people can't see you, they can't help you. And so if you think about this from internal in your business all the way through to external in your industry, and then even further in your country, and maybe even if you want to be known for being an expert in your subject matter, then clearly you can't do that if you're invisible. So think about, if you are invisible, how do you start becoming better known and moving through influence and positioning? And also, if you're in a big organization, you can be invisible in the teams that you work for. So potentially if you're in finance, who outside of finance knows that you actually exist and what value you bring to that organization? So think about this from an internal perspective in where you currently work, but also in your industry, but also externally. So if you're looking potentially in the next 6 months or 12 months to get another job, to move, to get a promotion, you've always got to be thinking, who can see me and what are they seeing? And better to disrupt yourself than be disrupted. So think about your own SWOT analysis. If you think about what your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats are, actually do that work on yourself. It's a lot easier to hold a mirror up to yourself and see where your gaps are than it is to be potentially told where your gaps are. But what I would say to you is, if you can't see where your gaps are, or you haven't got clarity, or you don't know where you're being visible, then this is where you need to work with people outside potentially of your organization, or people that you trust. So this is not a conversation you need to potentially have with your boss, but it's certainly something that you can potentially have with peers in the business, or with other leaders in the business, or maybe it is your boss, depending on how visible they're being, or whether they actually even understand what this is. So I think of myself as a performer, and I think we all should think of ourselves as a performer. So what are you saying to your audience? So think about who your audience are. Think about all the stakeholders in your career, and think about not just necessarily the obvious ones that you report to, and potentially those other departments that you report to, but who else outside of the business is seeing you? Some of your customers, some of your suppliers, some of your shareholders, perhaps the board. Who outside of your obvious stakeholders have you not thought about? And I put these into a sort of a map, a stakeholder map, and I think about the closest 5 people that are my closest stakeholders, and how do they like to be interacted with, and what do they think about me, and how much of that do I care about, and how much of that do I not have to care about. But think about also the language that you're using to each of those stakeholders. Think about the behavior that you're demonstrating. So think about your behavior in a meeting. If you're happy to sit there as a quiet church mouse in a meeting because you feel that you don't have anything to say, how is that being perceived by your stakeholders? Do they think that you're just being quiet because you don't know, or that you don't care, or that you don't have any value? Like, think about all these things that potentially is going through your audience's mind, because that's how they're assessing you on your performance. If you're going to stand up on stage and sing in an opera, that's how you need to think about yourself every day that you show up at work, because there'll be certain expectations of you. So as a CFO, I'm a communicator of inside the organization all the way to the board, but I'm also a communicator from the business to the shareholders, and then I bring back messages from the shareholders, from the board, back into the business. So I am the funnel where communication travels. So always think about, what are the expectations of me in this role? And I think if you're looking to taking on more responsibility or wanting to get promotion, you've got to think about, what are my audience changing expectations, and am I meeting those? Am I lifting my game to meet the changing expectations of others? So I've talked about a strategy, and I think about it a bit like a chess game. You've got to be in the game. You've got to actually have a ticket to the game to play it. Otherwise, if you're not showing up, then you've got limited chance of success. So it's really important to know what the rules are. And in a game of chess, apart from the pawns that move the same, and there's 2 of each player, apart from the king and the queen, which move similar, you've got to know how each piece moves. And so you've got to do that stakeholder mapping. You've got to understand what the behaviors, what the influence you have, and almost like a game of chess, make a map for yourself, put yourself in the middle, and draw around who your stakeholders are, the immediate stakeholders, and then who are the wider stakeholders. So that might be, if you're working in a finance team, for example, obviously your immediate stakeholders are the department heads of where you're reporting, and obviously the CFO, and then the board. But how other wider stakeholders impacted? So you might have the sales team, you might have the customer delivery team, you might have the marketing team. How are you interacting with those players in your game that are not necessarily directly impacted immediately by what you do? So identifying influence and power, thinking about where you've got challenges in teams, where you might have some people that are part of the future of an organization, and you might have people that are part of the old thinking in an organization. So just get curious about how you would, if you had to draw a line between the two, where do each of those players sit? So on the left-hand side of your imaginary piece of paper, those might be where the old players are thinking. And when I say old, I don't mean age-wise. I'm thinking about are they thinking innovatively? Are they thinking about the future, or are they just all about this is how we used to do things around here? So I would encourage you, that if you care about your career, that you should really think about innovation, disruption, being agile, thinking differently. And so you need to try and find like-minded players who are part of the new, so that you can become allies with those and collaborators with those, whilst you try to either move people from the old to the new, or perhaps the people that are in the old camp might not be around for too much longer. So again, need to get really clear, and do a stakeholder map so that you can see the people in your world and where they fit. So we talked about this, touched on this already, around identifying your gaps. So definitely doing your SWOT analysis, working out where you need to invest time. I don't think there's an awful lot of point working on things that you're strong at already. You've got to make sure that you get stronger at the things that you're not so good at. So working on your weaknesses, working on things that might threaten your position, might threaten your future. And so starting to call those out and working on those. And that's quite confronting, right? Because this doesn't make you feel very comfortable, but better you do this now and take steps to close the gaps than do nothing about it and then wait for someone else to close those gaps. Because if you wait, then the cost of waiting could be potentially that you get sidelined for an opportunity, or worse, that you actually get moved out of a business because you're not showing up in an innovative and agile way that's actually adding value anymore. So building your inner and outer circles, attribute a lot of this work to the work of Janine Garner, who has written a couple of books, but the best one I think for this is It's Who You Know. And she has definitely had an impact on my life and my career, because there's no point surrounding yourself with people that think like you. Okay, if you want to go and get someone to help move through strategies and challenges in your career, it's good to have people that think differently, to give you different perspectives. Again, talking about growth, if you're not growing, then potentially you're standing still, or worse, you're going backwards. So you've really got to commit time and energy and investment to your growth and to your career, and to review where you are and where you want to be. So again, talks back to that having a strategy piece. So in today's world of Mach 3 speed of the internet, I don't know how we managed to survive when we didn't have it, but how do you learn what it is that you don't know? So if you're like me, using LinkedIn, Facebook, you're getting, the machine is learning about what you like to read about, and it gives you content, that is sort of going to deliver what you've liked before. So how do you know, and how does the machine in terms of social media know that you actually want to learn more about software delivery or design thinking, when actually you're a finance person that the sort of machine learning has boxed you like this? How do you get exposed to learn the things that you don't know? The the World Economic Forum has got a guidance out there that says we should all have 101 learning days per year, which is terrifying in some respects, because I'm sure, like myself, you might be sitting here thinking, gosh, I don't do 101 days. A third of my year is not spent on learning. So just get curious about that for 2020. As you're sitting here planning what 2020 looks like, maybe make sure that you have a long weekend of learning each quarter. So at least then you've got, perhaps 12 days a year of learning. And look about what that learning looks like. And we can learn in lots of different ways now. So again, utilizing technology means that you don't have to down tools and go away and do a on-study campus, but maybe you need to do that too. So something for me back in 2013, when I won that award, I did my own SWOT analysis. And because I wanted to be CEO, I had to do that gap analysis that says, okay, so where are you now and where do you want to be in 3-5 years time? So if I want to be CEO, what do the skills of a CEO look like, and how do I measure up on that currently? And so I decided that I really wanted to be a public speaker, get better at public speaking. So I went off and did a course, which is part of the MBA elective at Macquarie Uni, and I did a 5-day course over 2 weekends. all about public performance for managers, and it was literally about the art of storytelling. So it just gives you an idea, once you do your own SWOT analysis, to get clear on what it is that you need to go away and learn. And plus it broadens your mind, which is awesome, right? If you're not learning, then potentially you're going backwards. But also think about your reach and think about the voice that you have. So social media is a platform, and so we need to make sure that we understand who's out there and who's listening to us and what do they mean to us. So again, coming back to why is it important to you? So as an example, as an accountant, the ACCA is my accounting qualification, and they're the largest global accounting body in the world. And I'm now representing all ACCA members because I'm on council. So think of it like the United Nations. There's 36 representatives that meet every 4 or 5 months, 4 or 5 times a year, and we get together to make sure that the executive of the ACCA, which is the commercial aspect of the ACCA, is doing what its members want it to do. So we set the strategy to make sure we deliver an accounting support and that's relevant into the future. So what I did 3 years ago was put my name down to stand on council, and I needed 4,000 votes globally of members to vote me into council. So what that did for me was it really showed me that I can't just sit on my Australia platform in terms of LinkedIn and Facebook, more so LinkedIn, but I couldn't just rest on my laurels and say, well, I've got, I don't know, at the time, 2,000 followers on Facebook, 2,000 followers on LinkedIn. So that's going to be enough for me to use that as the vehicle to have a voice. It wasn't going to deliver what I needed. So I needed to make sure I built a platform where I had a bigger reach, and I had accelerators in different countries who were members of ACCA who were helping me to get my message out there. So again, think about your platform, think about your reach, think about who you want to have in your network, and drive your network strategy around that. Think about the rather frightening statistic that says only 7% of your audience is actually seeing your message. So for someone like me who's got almost 4,500 followers on my personal LinkedIn page, if I'm only getting 7% of people seeing my message, then that's not, I'm going to have to make sure I bring my message in lots of different ways across a multiple impact platform. I can't just put one post out there once a month and expect that to get any traction. So it's good to make a start, and that's what I did 5 years ago. Was I started writing a blog every month, and it started getting a couple of hundred likes, a couple of hundred views, sorry. But now the world is, and the pace is sped up, so that we've got to be really consistent with the way that we're showing up. So if you're sitting here and thinking, I don't do any blogs, I'm not doing anything on social media, then you've absolutely got an opportunity to make a start. And what I would say to you is don't wait for perfect, because potentially the first thing that you write, you're not going to get a lot of people reading it anyway, and then you actually get better. So the more you do, the better you get. If I look back to my blogs that I started writing 4 years ago, they're a lot better today, I think. So it's good to make a start. You've got to be your own disruptor. Okay, don't wait to be disrupted, but also get clear about what is your message, what is your story that you're going to talk to people about, and why should they care. So you've almost got to depersonalize your message and really speak to your audience. So this is a lovely thing to really keep aspiring to. If you're not aiming high enough in your strategy, in your goals, then you're not really having a proper strategy, I don't think. If you think your strategy, your ultimate goal should actually feel like it's unachievable when you set it. And so continually having that belief in yourself that you can do this, and in time you will do this. So I said the opening quote that if we actually realize how powerful we are, there, that just step out of our own way and make things happen, and that's totally achievable for all of us. It's really around the self-belief and the language. So think about your language that you use when you explain yourself to others. If you say something like, oh, so I'm just an accounts manager, or I'm just accounts payable, or I'm just this or just that, then people are going to look at that and listen to that, and it's limiting you already. So really start thinking about your sales pitch is how people are going to consume you. Okay, so if you're just a small and shy and I'm just this, well, you've got to change that language. And if that's the case, you've got to work with other people to help you do that, because it's not something that's easily done on its own. So congratulations for coming to this webinar, because you're making a start on actually changing the outcome. Okay, so the version of insanity, I think we all know it. Do the same things, expect a different outcome. Well, we know that that is insane. We've got to really invest in the process to change the outcome. So talk to other people, ask people in your network that you trust. And this is not family members, but these are people that you may have connected with through business events, or other people in the office and other people in teams, and ask people about how they see you. Often we don't see ourselves in the same light as other people see you. So think about how you can maybe speak to one or two people about what do they think your strongest characteristic is, how do they think you show up, are you being visible, get some insights from others. And think about your strategy over the next 10 years around whether you can take your skill set into adjacent industries. So if you're in retail, can you take that across into digital? If you're in finance, can you take that across? If I'm a CFO, can I then step into a COO role? Can I be the CEO? And I think getting clear about what it is that you want to do, then there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be anything that you actually want to be. And that's a big belief of my own. So are you being watched? And you'll probably know that the answer is absolutely. And does it matter? So if you think about the resume, again, I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be dead. So people will only be able to see you online. So how are you showing up? Everyone's going to be looking at that. So really bring to life that two-dimensional sheet of paper that is supposed to encapsulate everything about you. Think about how you might do that differently in a three-dimensional way. Think about what you're talking about on LinkedIn. What are you blogging about? Does it resonate to just what you're doing currently in your role? But are you talking about challenges in the industry? Are you offering insights about how we can think differently about the social impact of the fact that we're all living longer, and what does that mean? And that was where I was coming from writing the white paper on the future of work. I wanted to show people that I actually thought more about the social impact of work rather than being the CFO and talking about numbers. So think about what you can talk about and get known for something. I say this often, that you're not going to get known for sitting on the fence. And so having a view on something is, it could be provocative, but I think it's really good to drive engagement, because people will either really agree with you or they won't agree with you. And that whole engagement piece is just really what you're looking for. You don't want to turn up, be visible, and then actually just shy away from any engagement. So thinking about your profile from an internal perspective of current work, current industry, but also external, how are people seeing you from the outside in? Something really important is this, what I call silent ROI. And so return on investment, as I've said, congratulations for showing up today. I hope you get a good return on your investment of time, but think about the payback period. So I'm a big believer in investing now with a return that may be 6 months time or in 12 months time. And something that I've been doing now for the last year is on YouTube, the CFO conversations. And that's something that I have been self-funding. I get no revenue directly from that investment. And so what I do is bring CFOs together in a film studio and talk about the challenges of today's CFO. So I have people come into to help me have those conversations that are CFOs. I rent the studio, I have the furniture, I then spend time getting it out onto social channels like YouTube. So there's a huge amount of investment into that CFO conversations. I've got nearly 100 followers now, and I've made something like 42 episodes, and I'm about to do series 5 next month. That has a silent ROI. What it's doing in the background is it's building profile. People will start following you for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, but they will then jump in and you won't realize that you've just been building up this silent following. And so, as I said, going back, if I want to be on the Global Council of ACCA and if I want to become president, which I do in the next 8 years, this is building brand now. So again, you can't be seen to be an overnight success. It just doesn't work. And if anyone tells you it differently, I don't believe it. So this is my investment, and the ROI will be the fact that I will achieve my goal in 8 years' time. So just trying to think differently about what the payback period is on investment of time and of money for you now. And really, in this more digitized world with AI and machine learning, the relationships part of building your brand and building your network is totally number one point is about relationships, and that's the only thing really that a computer and a robot can't do. So you've got to get really good at building relationships. Have a look at that book, It's Who You Know by Janine Garner. It's beautiful. So thinking about careers a bit more holistically, we potentially will have portfolio careers where we're potentially working for a number of employers at the same time. This is something that only people would have done when they started getting to a board role, but we see it all the time with our freelancing economy and consulting economy and consulting back into the industry that you're an expert in. And maybe you'll start balancing some of that with a part-time employment role and doing consulting at the same time, or maybe doing some freelancing. Maybe you want to do some board roles, some advisory roles. Think about that and how that fits into your career strategy. Think about the structure and the risks and rewards. A lot of people say to me, that really love to get onto boards because that looks attractive potentially, but comes with a lot of risk. And so really start to do your homework around, are you willing to take that risk and what's the reward? So a lot of the skills that I learn, a lot of the profile building that I'm doing is all around the roles that I'm volunteering in. So the ACCA Global Council role is a volunteer role. It takes a lot of time and effort and energy to travel, to commit, to show up, to be present, to add value. And so that is my return on investment. It's my time. I'm also doing volunteering for the Audit and Risk Committee here for Dress with Success, which is a not-for-profit organisation. Again, it's volunteering of time, but it's not a board role. So you're not taking on as much risk as you would if you're actually a board director. But so have a think about what strings you want to have in your career bow. Talked about this a little bit already, but thinking about seeing yourself from the outside in. We always see ourselves from the inside out, but just take some time to unplug, to come back and to try and leave your knowing mind behind and come with the unknowing, the learning mind that says, what is it that I do? What is it that I want to do? What skill sets should I be leveraging to really unlock success for me? And what are the skill sets that I know I need to get better at? But also surround yourself with some boundaries about what's acceptable for you and what's not acceptable for you. So how much time are you going to invest in this process or that career choice, and what's non-negotiable? So creating this space, and I would really encourage you as we head down into the end of the year to spend this time to actually think about what's important and try to take that knowing mind, oh, I can't do that because of this. I can't do that thinking because that my boss is not going to allow that to happen. Give yourself permission to take away the excuses and actually draw out on a piece of paper what it is that you want to be. I've talked to so many people in my role now, as I'm an advisor to businesses and to individuals. So many people say to me, I can't do something. And that's just because it's your language, right? You're saying I can't, and then guess what? Probably true. But if you say I can do something, then the whole structure, the whole language changes. And having that open mindset and talking to others. So really have an advisory board, call it here the soundboard, but having an advisory board that say to you, have you thought about X, Y, Z? Literally half an hour before coming onto this webinar, I had a conversation with another fellow CFO about taking steps towards being a CEO. So why can't that happen? There's absolutely no reason why that can't happen. It's just giving yourself permission to allow that to happen, and then start talking and start showing up as a CEO and not a CFO. So if you want to be the head of marketing, stop being the marketing assistant, start talking as if you were the marketing, the chief marketing officer, or whatever the example is for you. You've got to start thinking in a bigger picture. So talked about this already. You really need to be consistent. So as soon as you start thinking about what your plan is, what your strategy is for showing up, you've got to be consistent. You can't just say, oh, this month I just got tired, or I just got fed up, or I just felt like I couldn't do this anymore. It's like, be careful what you start, because this is a journey that has to be a continual, consistent journey. And the effort that you invest will make all the difference. Truly believe that if you shine a light on what you want to achieve, and you get accountability for achieving those goals, you will definitely get there faster. I'm a big believer that you should be investing at least 10% of your salary, annual salary, to learning, development, and improving yourself. To me, that's a no-brainer. It probably should be more than 10%, but absolutely, every year I was earning a salary, I was always investing that back into learning and development. Some people say to me, Paula, I don't know how to explain myself. So think about your top 3 stories. What are going to be the impressive stories that you can tell people when you're pitching yourself about how you've taken something from X, Y, Z, and what you've learned in that process, and what did you do that made it different? So think about 3 stories for yourself that are really passionate stories, so that you can tell them easily. But give people a context about why you're telling them that story, and give them relevancy. Oh, this happened to me 3 years ago when I did X, Y, Z. So the art of storytelling is really, really powerful. And then think about you as the CEO of you. You are your business. And if you don't care about your business, then you can be damn sure that no one else does. So consistency, consistency, consistency. So I'd love to chat with you further. I know it's been short and sweet, and I've got a lot of content in here, but hopefully you can work your way through it, and I'm happy to, and I will send out the slides to you so that you've got something to refer back to. And if you want to work with me further, then you can find me on a number of different platforms, but I'm the CEO of the female networking group called LBD, and I've also now got my business working with businesses and individuals, PK Advisory, which is the branding that I'm doing this under today. So absolutely think about the consistency, think about the effort that you're willing to put in, because this is a journey and you really need to make a lot of effort of time and potentially money, and think about what it is that you really want to be the leader of you. So that's me. I'm going to open the floor to questions. So if you do have any, please put them into this little box here. I'll just give you a few moments to do so, and I'll put myself on mute whilst I navigate the Okay, great question here from a lady in Dublin, which is awesome. So this is just showing you that my global reach is working. Question is, do you think the size matters, as in being a smaller private company versus a big corporate? Do you limit your growth opportunities? So I would say I don't think size matters, and I have spent a lot of my corporate life in small private businesses that then went public because they got taken over by bigger business. Then I went into a FTSE 200 business, which was global, gave me lots of opportunities then. And then I've come back into smaller size businesses again. So what has been important from my perspective is I like to be, and I describe myself as being a big fish in a small pond. And I don't want to be a small fish in a big pond, but I like to get my arms around everything. So I like to be somebody that gets involved in commercial decisions, pricing, project management, treasury, cash flow reporting, shareholder management. So I would prefer to be in the smaller pond, but I think it doesn't really matter. I think if you can demonstrate what you've done in your time at smaller companies, because often you can drive more change in a smaller private company versus a bigger behemoth that can't move fast. So I think no matter which one you're in, as long as you can really tell the story about what you did, I think that brings to life what your value is. And so it shouldn't matter, I don't think, and it wouldn't if I was interviewing somebody. I want to know what they've done. Tell me about what happened in the business when you went from $10 million to $100 million. Tell me what the process was from going to MYOB to Microsoft Dynamics. Tell me about the pathway. Tell me about the challenges that you experienced along the way. So hopefully that has helped you, Natalia. And let me just hold on for another 10 seconds to see whether I've got any further questions. So I've got no further questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I will send you these slides so you can go back and follow them up. And I hope that you found this really helpful. Whether you've listened to it live or whether you listen to a recording, then there's a lot in here. So go back, have another listen. Definitely have a look at It's Who You Know by Janine Garner. It's an awesome book, and it really helps to think about your network, because as I said at the start, you can go fast on your own, but if you want to go further, you have to go with people, and you have to surround yourself with the right people. So I'm going to sign off over and out from Sydney and wish you all a beautiful rest of your day, and look forward to talking to you soon.